The grand lobby of the Royal Crest Hotel shimmered with chandeliers and polished marble floors, a place where arrogance often walked hand in hand with luxury. Dressed in a wrinkled shirt and worn-out shoes, the man who had just stepped through the golden doors didn't seem to belong. The receptionist's polite smile faltered for a moment, her eyes narrowing with judgment. Whispers followed him as he walked to the counter, asking for a manager. But no one knew that beneath that ordinary, unimpressive disguise stood Inspector Raymond Cole, a top undercover investigator from the Department of Public Safety, sent to probe serious allegations of corruption, exploitation, and health code violations at the city's most. The sun had barely risen when Inspector Raymond Cole adjusted his tie in the reflection of a dusty taxi window. His clothes were intentionally chosen to look ordinary, even a little shabby. The mission wasn't about appearance, it was about perception. Today, he was not the respected inspector, known across departments for dismantling corruption. Today, he was just another face in the crowd, a man who could be ignored, dismissed, or humiliated without consequence. As the taxi pulled up to the Royal Crest Hotel, the grand structure loomed above him like a monument to privilege. Glass walls shimmered, valets in crisp uniforms hurried to open car doors for luxury vehicles, and a faint scent of expensive perfume hung in the air. The contrast between him and the place was stark, almost theatrical, which was precisely how he wanted it. His agency had received multiple complaints about this establishment, rumors of exploitation, bribery, unsanitary practices hidden beneath the marble polish, but no official inspection had managed to dig deep enough. Raymond was there to change that. He stepped out, his shoes making a soft scuffing sound against the marble driveway. The valet glanced at him, then at the taxi, then back at him again with a look that said everything without a word. Raymond offered a polite nod and entered through the golden revolving doors. Inside, the air was cool, laced with the scent of lilies from the flower arrangements. The lobby was designed to overwhelm tall ceilings, chandeliers, and staff that moved with precision, all smiles until their eyes lingered on someone who didn't fit their ideal clientele. Raymond walked toward the reception desk where two employees stood, their postures straight, their expressions professional but detached. "Good morning," he greeted with a calm tone, his voice steady. "I'd like to speak with the manager." The receptionist, a young woman with a practiced smile, looked him up and down, her gaze lingering on his cheap wristwatch and wrinkled shirt. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" she asked, the sir sounding more like an afterthought. "No," Raymond replied simply, "but it's important." Her smile tightened. "I'm afraid our manager is very busy. You can leave your concern with me." "I'd rather discuss it directly," he said. A faint scoff escaped her before she masked it with another artificial smile. She leaned slightly toward her colleague, whispering something that made him smirk. "Sir, as I said, the manager isn't available for what? Perhaps you can write down your issue." Raymond's eyes shifted around the lobby. He noticed a security camera positioned high in the corner, a maintenance worker polishing a vase, and a guest complaining about their room key at another counter. Every detail mattered to him, not as a customer, but as an investigator. Still, the humiliation was part of the disguise. He needed them to underestimate him. "I'll wait," he said softly. The receptionist sighed dramatically, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "You can't just stand here waiting for management. This isn't a public building. Please, sir, move aside." The tone stung, not because of pride, but because of how easily contempt flowed from people used to power. The eyes of others began to turn toward him, curious, judgmental, entertained. A security guard, broad-shouldered and alert, began walking toward the desk. "Is there a problem here?" the guard asked, his hand resting near his belt as if this man in worn shoes was a threat to luxury itself. "None," Raymond replied evenly, though his patience was being tested. The receptionist folded her arms. "Sir, if you don't have a reservation or a reason to be here, I'll have to ask you to leave. We can't have you disturbing our guests." Her words echoed just loud enough for a few people in line to hear. Someone snickered from behind, and Raymond caught the flash of a phone. Someone recording, perhaps to upload a video later, mocking the poor man, causing a scene. It was a familiar humiliation, one he'd seen inflicted on countless ordinary citizens by people hiding behind uniforms or titles. He let the moment play out because it was revealing their true colors. Every insult, every look of disdain, was evidence of the very arrogance he was sent to expose. "I understand," he said quietly, and stepped aside. The guard relaxed slightly, satisfied that the situation was under control. The receptionist rolled her eyes and returned to her computer screen, her posture smug, as if she'd won some invisible battle. But while they turned away, Raymond subtly pressed the small button on his watch, activating the hidden microphone built into his sleeve. Every word, every sneer, every dismissive tone was now being recorded. He moved to a corner of the lobby, pretending to browse a pamphlet about spa services. From his peripheral vision, he observed staff interactions. A bellboy was being berated by a supervisor for standing too long. A cleaner, an older woman, was scolded for missing a fingerprint on the elevator glass. The culture here was toxic, built on hierarchy and intimidation. Raymond noted everything mentally, keeping his expression neutral. When a wealthy guest accidentally spilled coffee near the counter, 3 staff members rushed to clean it, but when the same cleaner asked for help carrying supplies, no one lifted a finger. It was the kind of environment that thrived on image, where people bowed to power and trampled the rest. Minutes later, a guest shouted at the receptionist because his room wasn't ready. She apologized profusely, promising complimentary service, her tone dripping with sweetness, a stark contrast to how she'd spoken to Raymond moments ago. The hypocrisy was glaring, but necessary. Every second of this encounter painted the picture he needed for his report. The way they treated him, a man who appeared beneath their standards, told him more about the establishment than any document ever could. When the manager finally appeared, Raymond made no move to approach him. Instead, he watched. The man was tall, confident, and spoke loudly enough to command attention. His suit was impeccable, his watch expensive. He shook hands with select guests, ignored others, and walked right past the same cleaner struggling with her cart. Power radiated from him, the kind that didn't need words, just presence. Raymond memorized his behavior, the arrogance hidden behind charm. This was the man responsible for the hotel's culture, and soon, he'd be facing questions he'd never prepared for. As Raymond continued to blend into the background, staff members passed him by with disapproving glances, whispering under their breath. To them, he was a nuisance, an uninvited outsider in a world reserved for the elite. They didn't know the truth that the man they dismissed as unworthy held the authority to bring everything they valued crashing down. Each act of disrespect fueled the quiet storm building behind his calm demeanor. The humiliation wasn't just personal, it was the spark that confirmed everything he'd suspected about how this place operated beneath the surface. As Raymond lingered in the background of the grand lobby, his demeanor calm and unthreatening. The hidden camera embedded in his pen quietly captured every moment. He had blended into the rhythm of the hotel, invisible among the movement of bellhops, servers, and guests. The humiliation he faced earlier wasn't wasted, it was the bait. Now that the staff had dismissed him as irrelevant, they lowered their guard, allowing him to witness the true nature of their operations. He took a seat near the cafe corner, pretending to scroll through his phone while he synced the live footage from his hidden devices to a secure channel. The agency's analysts on the other end began receiving the first visuals of what was supposed to be one of the city's most elite establishments. But the cracks were already visible across the hall. A server emerged from the kitchen, balancing a tray of breakfast platters, his hands trembling from exhaustion. Raymond noticed the man's sleeves were rolled up, revealing faint burn marks. When the server accidentally dropped a spoon, the head waiter immediately grabbed his arm and hissed something sharp into his ear before forcing him back into the kitchen. No one else in the lobby noticed or pretended not to. It was a small moment, but it revealed a culture of intimidation lurking beneath the polished smiles. Raymond's camera caught every second. The crisp sound of the waiter's voice sharp and cruel against the quiet background music. He decided to move around. Wandering toward the hallway that led to the conference rooms, he noticed an authorized personnel-only door slightly ajar. Through the crack, he saw the storage area dimly lit, cluttered with cleaning supplies, and oddly, a few crates stacked in the corner marked private inventory. The labeling piqued his attention. Hotels didn't usually have secretive markings on their supplies. Pretending to tie his shoelace, he angled his pen just right to capture a few seconds of footage before a passing staff member noticed him and quickly shut the door. Her nervous expression confirmed his suspicion something was being hidden. As he made his way toward the elevators, two guests were arguing with the receptionist about unexpected charges on their bill. The manager appeared again, his tone polite but evasive, promising a system error had occurred. Raymond noted how smoothly the lie rolled off his tongue. He'd seen the same pattern in other corrupt establishment system errors that always benefited the business. He pressed another button on his watch, activating the micro camera in his shirt button. It wasn't just about filming behavior. It was about patterns, repeated exploitation masked behind luxury upstairs. The atmosphere changed. The hallway was quieter, the air thick with expensive perfume and disinfectant. Raymond walked past several housekeeping staff members who looked overworked and underpaid. One woman, her uniform slightly torn, was kneeling to scrub the carpet. She looked up briefly, her eyes red with fatigue. "You okay?" Raymond asked softly. She hesitated before nodding. "Just long hours, sir. Always long hours." Her voice carried a hint of fear, as though she'd be punished for even talking. When her supervisor appeared from the end of the corridor, she quickly looked away, focusing on her task. The supervisor glared at Raymond suspiciously, not recognizing him but sensing he didn't belong. He smiled politely and moved on, recording every second inside the elevator. Raymond reviewed the live feed on his hidden display device. What he saw was worse than expected: staff being yelled at in the kitchen, unauthorized cash transactions happening at the bar counter, and a storage room filled with unregistered alcohol bottles, likely smuggled through back entrances. Every frame painted a picture of systemic misconduct. He sent a coded message to headquarters, requesting a secondary undercover team to prepare for inspection. Still, his mission wasn't complete. The corruption here wasn't just operational, it was psychological. The people running this place had built an empire on manipulation, making everyone beneath them believe silence was survival. Back on the ground floor, Raymond headed toward the restaurant. He ordered a cup of coffee, not to drink it, but to observe how staff treated low-paying customers. The waiter serving him was visibly nervous, his uniform slightly stained, hands shaking as he placed the cup. "You all right?" Raymond asked casually. "You seem tense." The man hesitated, glancing over his shoulder before whispering, "If the supervisor sees me talking, I'll lose my shift." That one sentence told him everything he needed to know. The staff weren't lazy or careless, they were terrified. Fear was the system here, enforced by management through threats of termination or withheld wages moments later. A commotion broke out near the front desk. A delivery driver was being berated by the security guard for entering through the wrong door, Raymond observed quietly, noting how the guard shoved the man's delivery boxes aside, spilling some contents onto the floor. The driver tried to apologize, but the guard's aggression intensified until the manager appeared and ordered the man to leave. It was pure abuse of authority, and everyone nearby simply watched, unwilling to interfere. The hotel's reputation was built on image, and image mattered more than humanity. Raymond discreetly captured the entire scene. His evidence was building layer by layer, not just through visual proof, but through the pattern of behavior that exposed the hotel's moral decay. While pretending to read a newspaper in the lounge, he overheard two employees talking near the staff corridor. Their conversation was hushed, but fragments reached him. "He took the bribe again," one muttered. "The inspector never comes because the manager pays them off." The irony almost made him smirk. They were right, no inspector had made it through unannounced. Until now. He recorded their conversation quietly, ensuring every word was documented. His plan was working perfectly. The arrogance of the staff and management had blinded them to his real identity. They thought he was just another insignificant visitor, but in truth, he was collecting the kind of evidence that would unravel everything they'd built. The deeper he observed, the clearer it became that the corruption wasn't isolated. The restaurant was overcharging customers and pocketing the difference before registering the bills. The housekeeping department used expired cleaning products to save costs, putting guests' health at risk. The kitchen's hygiene was appalling, spoiled ingredients hidden behind fresh ones for display. When Raymond casually entered the restroom near the kitchen, he found a maintenance worker illegally dumping waste into a drain. The man froze when he saw Raymond but relaxed when he realized this ordinary guest posed no threat. It was almost poetic. The same arrogance that led to his earlier humiliation was now giving him access to the hotel's dirtiest secrets. Returning to the lobby, Raymond sat down in the same chair where he had been dismissed hours earlier. He could still feel the echo of that receptionist's condescension, but now it only fueled his resolve. On his screen, the agency's analysts confirmed that all footage was being successfully recorded and stored. The evidence was irrefutable. He adjusted his pen slightly, aiming it toward the reception desk once more, where the manager was laughing with a wealthy guest. They had no idea that behind the unremarkable man, sitting quietly across the lobby, was the ticking clock of their downfall. The same environment that had humiliated him earlier was now exposing itself piece by piece, like a grand illusion collapsing under its own lies. Every dismissive glance, every insult, every careless act of arrogance was sealing their fate, and Raymond knew that soon. The world outside would see the Royal Crest Hotel for what it truly was. E-rated beneath the surface, the clock above the lobby's grand entrance ticked past the 20-minute mark since Raymond Cole had walked through those golden doors. And in that short span of time, everything about the Royal Crest Hotel's illusion of perfection was beginning to unravel. Sitting quietly in a corner with his inconspicuous tablet, Raymond reviewed the live feed transmitted from his hidden devices, the camera in his pen, the mic in his watch, and a miniature drone he had discreetly deployed from his briefcase to hover near the kitchen vents. The evidence was overwhelming. Corruption, negligence, abuse of power, all captured in real time. What began as humiliation had now transformed into silent domination. The same people who sneered at him moments ago were unknowingly standing on the edge of exposure. He tapped his earpiece once, activating the encrypted line to his field team stationed 2 blocks away. "Proceed to phase 3, he said under his breath, his tone steady but sharp. Within minutes, plainclothes officers from the Department of Public Safety began converging toward the hotel. They entered in pairs, some as guests, some as service inspectors, some blending among the crowd. None of the hotel staff realized what was unfolding. The lobby still buzzed with the same artificial politeness, the clinking of glasses, the chatter of guests unaware that the empire around them was seconds away from collapse. Raymond stood and approached the reception desk once more. The same receptionist who had humiliated him earlier straightened her posture, her fake smile returning. "Oh, you again," she said, her tone dripping with irritation. "I told you," he interrupted calmly, sliding his identification card across the counter. The shiny emblem of the Department of Public Safety gleamed under the chandelier's light. "Inspector Raymond Cole, Enforcement Division. Effective immediately. This hotel is under official inspection and temporary shutdown pending investigation." Her smile vanished. For a moment, she stood frozen, her mouth slightly open as the color drained from her face. The manager, hearing the sudden shift in tone, hurried toward the desk. "Excuse me," he said with practiced charm. There must be some misunderstanding. We have all our paperwork in order. Raymond met his eyes, calm and unflinching. Then I suggest you present it to the audit team arriving in about 60 seconds. Before the manager could respond, 2 uniformed officers entered through the main doors, followed by a small team carrying inspection kits and recording equipment. Guests turned to watch, whispers spreading like wildfire through the marble hall. The receptionist's hands trembled as she stepped back, realizing that the man she had mocked wasn't a disgruntled guest, but the very authority she'd tried to dismiss. The air in the lobby grew heavy, the pretense of luxury suffocating under the weight of truth. The officers began moving methodically, checking the reception computers, requesting access to transaction records, and sealing off certain areas of the lobby. Raymond gave concise instructions, his tone clipped and professional. Sweep the kitchen, storage, and administrative offices. Secure staff logs and payroll files. Record everything. His voice carried the calm authority of someone who had done this countless times before, but his eyes betrayed a deeper intensity. This wasn't just about exposing violations. It was about justice for every worker belittled, every guest overcharged, every rule ignored for profit. When the inspectors entered the kitchen, chaos erupted. The chefs and waiters froze mid-task as the officers began documenting the conditions. Raymond followed behind, his expression unreadable as he observed spoiled meat stored beside fresh produce, dirty utensils hidden beneath stainless steel counters, and unregistered bottles stacked behind locked cabinets. One of the officers looked at him and nodded grimly, confirmation of everything he'd suspected. The manager, now visibly sweating, tried to intervene. "Inspector, if I may explain, you'll have your chance," Raymond replied coldly. "For now, step aside." Outside the kitchen, a team was interviewing staff members discreetly. Several employees, now realizing they were protected by the inspector's authority, began speaking freely. A young housekeeper confessed that their wages were often withheld for weeks. Another admitted that they were forced to work overtime without pay, under threats of dismissal. Each testimony layered onto the growing mountain of evidence. Raymond's recorder captured every word, every trembling voice. What had once been whispers in the shadows now became the chorus of truth echoing through the hotel's gleaming corridors. Meanwhile, guests were being escorted to the lobby, where officers calmly explained that the hotel was temporarily closing due to a government investigation. Some complained, others looked shocked, but most watched with curiosity as the powerful establishment they once admired was exposed piece by piece. The receptionist who once looked down on Raymond now stood speechless, clutching a clipboard as her supervisor scolded her for not recognizing who he was. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same arrogance that had driven their behavior was now consuming them from within. The inspection moved with ruthless efficiency. Financial documents were seized, hidden storage rooms opened, and unauthorized cash deposits uncovered. One of the inspectors handed Raymond a report showing irregular transactions, large sums disappearing into personal accounts linked to the management. He scanned the file, his expression hardening. "Contact financial crimes. We're expanding this investigation." The officers moved instantly, their radios crackling with instructions as reinforcements prepared to move in. The shutdown had escalated from a standard audit to a full-blown corruption case. As the reality of their downfall settled in, the manager tried one final act of defiance. "You can't just barge in here and humiliate my staff," he snapped, his voice trembling beneath a facade of confidence. "We have high-profile guests, investors, partnerships." Raymond turned toward him, his tone cutting through the noise like a blade. "You humiliated my people long before I stepped foot in this building. You exploited your workers, cheated your clients, and broke every regulation that protects this city's citizens." "I'm not humiliating you, Mr. Grant. I'm holding you accountable." The room fell silent. For the first time, even the guests stopped whispering. The sound of camera shutters filled the air as the inspection team documented the evidence. The once grand lobby, a symbol of untouchable prestige, now resembled a crime scene cloaked in silence and shame. The chandeliers still sparkled, but beneath their glow, the truth had scorched the hotel's image beyond repair. Outside, news crews had begun to arrive, alerted by the sudden police presence. Flashing lights painted the front of the Royal Crest Hotel in chaotic reds and blues. Reporters clamored for information, their microphones ready. Raymond stepped through the glass doors, greeted by the cool breeze of the city and the swarm of cameras. He kept his tone calm and factual. "The Royal Crest Hotel is now closed pending investigation by the Department of Public Safety. Violations have been confirmed, and further legal action is underway." He said no more, refusing to indulge the sensationalism. Justice didn't need theatrics, it needed integrity inside. The staff watched from the windows. The receptionist leaned against the counter, eyes wide and expression hollow, the reality of what she'd done sinking in. The manager sat slumped in a chair, surrounded by officers and paperwork that would soon destroy his career. The same space that had once radiated authority now felt